Did you ever wonder what it takes to transform your life, shift from knowledge to action, and change your self-image for real results? This episode from the Think and Grow Rich series is definitely a must listen if you're wanting to shift your paradigms and change the way you carry yourself through the world. Would you like to think and grow rich? If so, keep on listening. This podcast is dedicated to those who have found their way from fear to freedom and for those who are considering undertaking this amazing journey. This is the Courage to Be podcast, and I am your host, Tanya Vasallo. Before we get into this episode, I'm thrilled to share that I'm hosting a series on how people's lives have been influenced by the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. If you'd like to learn and apply how to think and grow rich, go to the show notes to get some wonderful free resources and join the Courage to Be community. I look forward to being your guide and mentor so you can transform your life. Welcome to the Courage to Be, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. And today we have Karla Elizondo with us. Welcome, Karla.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited about this because, as you know, I've been certified in the Napoleon Hill Institute as a coach. I know you are too. And I'm so excited about sharing this new series of Napoleon Hill and how everyone's gotten, how Napoleon Hill has touched our lives, because I feel like Napoleon Hill is the father of self-development. And you can trace it back, if you go back to like Tony Robbins, Oprah, like just all these famous and successful people have attributed reading, Bill Gates, just like Think and Grow Rich and how that's changed and transformed their lives. So I want to take this interview series down that path and ask you, I want to start out with, when was the first time, if you can recall, that you were exposed to Napoleon Hill's teachings, and with what? Was it Think and Grow Rich?
Honestly, it was through Bob Proctor. It was
Okay,
through Bob
great.
Proctor.
Tell us the story.
Yeah. Okay, this is a hilarious story. Okay, well, it's not funny, but it is to me. So it was back in 2006. And let me just preface this with, I have always been curious and a student of the mind, psychology, philosophy, spirituality, really, the whole, like, why are we here? What is the meaning of it all? Big questions. I think we all get to the point in life where we're like, what are we doing? I need more answers. And we just have that calling in our soul. So that just led me on a journey of reading books, listening to things that were people were having big conversations of answers and philosophies and all kinds of stuff. So cut to, I was really young, but I also struggled with anxiety and depression because I didn't understand life. And as we learn and teach, when we're in a state of ignorance or not knowing, and anybody that's watching can relate, when we don't know, when we're in the unknown, there's nothing more scary and fearful of not knowing. And so in that space, I used to cope with alcohol and I'm really open with my journey. And so that was my coping mechanism, which led me down a path that, is not the most elegant, but thank God I'm sober now. But in that time, I had gotten pulled over for drinking and driving. And I went through that whole process and I didn't fight it. I was like, yeah, this is the consequences of my actions. And so I say all that to say I was in a program that you have to take that's required. And it was in 2006. And the teacher of this drinking driving program in 2006 showed us the secret.
Wow, I love that movie. Well, back in the day, it was so popular.
Yeah.
Continue. I can't wait to
I know.
hear.
So I'm sitting here with people who, are taking accountability. We're all in the same room because we all, we're serving time, so to speak, for the consequences of our actions. And so there was a lot of people in there, people who clearly had alcohol issues and all this. But this teacher was so, I can't even tell you, so magical. And this was back in 2006. So it's been almost 20 years. I recently, just last year, went to visit him and thanked him for all he taught me. But anyways, he exposed me, showed us a secret. And that's really, I think for a lot of people, we always kind of knew, we had a feeling that there was something. And then that movie just was like, that's it. Oh my God. It just opened up the gateway for more study and more understanding of our power and our mind and our thoughts and intentions and all those sorts of things. So I had first been exposed to The Secret. That was when Bob Proctor, he was pretty much one of the main, teachers on that movie. And then it just led me further down throughout the decade, early 2000s, into this work. So cut to, I really, maybe in 2017, 2018, I was one of those people who, like most of us, we just watch the YouTube videos and the podcast just to be entertained. And it feels good when we're watching it, but we don't apply it. I didn't apply it. It felt good to learn it, but when I really got to a point in 2017 when life had just reached an apex of like a fork in the road, like I can't live like this anymore. I'm doing all the things, I'm working out, I'm eating healthy. At that time I was still drinking, but I was like, something's got to give. And so I got serious about personal development, and Bob Proctor for me was the coach, the mentor that really molded the spiritual with the psychological for me. He always says, if your personal development program does not have a spiritual basis, it will never be full. It will never work to its fullest capacity, because we are spirit at the end of the day. And that connection with that part of us is really our true power. It's not just the intellect or the brain or our body. And so he was my mentor. And he, as many of you know, or if you don't, Bob Proctor, he dedicated his life to the teachings of Napoleon Hill, particularly Think and Grow Rich, that book. If you ever see him always holding that tattered old book, he read it every single day since he was 26 years old, and he passed just a couple years ago at 89, 87. And so he read it every single day. So when I got serious about personal development, I started studying with him, taking his programs, going to the events. And so all of his teachings stemmed from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. So then that's when I first read the whole book through, probably maybe 2018. And I had maybe heard about it, but I thought it was like a business book for like, rich white men. That's what I thought. I thought like, I'm not into money. I'm not into banking. I don't know what this is, Think and Grow Rich. Like, because I had only heard men talk about it, and men who were in finance for some reason. I don't know. But so I just thought it wasn't for me. But when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a quite very deeply spiritual book. Like, it talks about infinite intelligence and spirit and universal intelligence and our spirit and all kinds of stuff. I'm like, wow. So yeah, I would say the past 5, 6 years.
That is amazing. So what transformed? Because you mentioned something that's pretty key there, that you were taking in personal development, and you were being entertained versus being transformed. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I always was that person that said, I know, I've read that. Even to today, I say, thank gosh, like, I've read that years ago. It's like, one thing I learned with Bob Proctor and through Napoleon Hill is repetition is key. We do not know something until we can teach it to someone in a way that they understand. And so we threw around words like, manifestation, paradigms, all these things. If we can't teach someone how it works and how to do it and what it means, we don't understand it. And so I was finding myself taking in all of this. It felt fabulous, but I couldn't explain it to somebody because it wasn't penetrating into my blood and bones. I wasn't getting it completely. I was feeling a little bit of the effects of just being in the room, but I wasn't fully wearing the perfume, so to speak. It was like the eau de toilette. It was like the cheap version, and I was seeing all these people succeed, and I was like, what's the difference? And so when we are not just interested in something and we get serious, there's that book, I don't know who it's by, but The Magnificent Obsession. It's like, we have to be obsessed in a good way, not in a bad way. But until we take something serious and we make a decision, that's what it is. It's making a decision to apply these principles, to really apply what you're learning and use the tool of repetition. Repetition is key to any learning. And so the biggest shift for me was, I was the person that said, I know that. And on the calls with the coaches, they're like, Karla, if you say I know one more time. And I was like, what? They're like, you don't know. You don't know. If you knew it, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't have the results you have. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I turned that into, you're right. So whenever they said something, you're right, tell me more, instead of, I know. Because I don't. We never know. There's always a new level. And so that was a big reframe for me. So whenever I catch myself saying, I know, I absolutely stop and I reframe that. But one last thing that was so important was when I was studying with Bob is that he had us infamously read chapters for like 90 days straight, certain paragraphs over and over and over. And at first, that I know, the part of me that I know this, I don't know how to do that. It's kind of like resisting the information. It's like, why wouldn't I want to read a book, a chapter, 90 days in a row? So he gave us this assignment of getting an accountability partner and first reading the chapter of Decision for 90 days every single day. So every morning at 6 o'clock, I had my alarm set. I would call my accountability partner on the phone, just a voice call. We would read the chapter on decision every day for 90 days. I would read a little bit. I would pass. He would pick it up. He would say pass. I would pick it up every day for 90 days. I did that with decision, auto suggestion, and persistence. So like, I think it was the year of 2020, maybe 2020. Yeah, 2020. This book right here is in my cells. When I hear people read it, it's like a lyric to a song that you've known since you were a kid. It's like I could finish the sentence. And so through the repetition, it lives in me. And that was really the turning point for me of realizing like, oh, this is not just something to listen to, it's something to bathe yourself in and through repetition and apply in your life. Because when you repeat something and it's a programming, it's automatic, it's an operating system. But reading a book one time is like, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. It's not, it hasn't solidified into your cells.
That is amazing. I can only imagine having to read the same paragraph over and over because that's not how we're taught. We're taught to go through, the material, memorize whatever it is, and then check. You can
Yeah.
check it off and say,
Yeah.
I read that book. I
Yeah.
watched that movie.
Yeah.
I did that course.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, there's a big difference between being entertained and just reading something or watching something or even attending an event and not applying it in your life. That is huge.
Yeah.
Tell us how that changed for you from someone that was coming from that mindset of I know it to maybe I don't know this as much and I don't know it until I apply it. Share
Yeah.
with us what that difference was for you.
Yeah. It's a journey in humility. A slice of humble pie is what it is. Because results don't lie. Results don't lie. It's like we think, I mean, we're all special, right? We're all special. We all have potential. But we think that just because that's enough. No, we have to take action. We have to implement it. And so, as you were talking about, we go to the events. There's a great book. I don't know if anybody's read it. It's Busting Loose from the Money Game, Robert Scheinfeld or something. But he talks about the suntan effect, that people go to these events and it's like getting suntanned and they feel so good and they feel so high. And then they go home and they lose the tan. And it's not permanent because you're just getting a suntan. You're just choosing to lay out in the sun. This is a lifestyle. You're outside in the sun all day long. And if you've ever done that, you get your skin, it's just you're pigmented now, And so that's the difference. So I would say it was a journey in humility, putting my pride aside, because this is what I found. I remember when I was younger, being that curious student, going to the bookstores, there was Barnes and Noble and the library. And I just remember from a young age knowing that there was like some sort of embarrassment or shame being in the self-help section or like self-improvement. Like people would be with like hats on, like nobody wanted to be seen in the personal development, improvement, self-help aisle because they wouldn't want to.
Especially called self-help.
I
Because
know.
it's like you almost have a problem with yourself.
Yes. Or like, you're not perfect. Why are you in the self-help aisle? Something's wrong with you. How embarrassing. It's like everybody should be in. That should be the busiest aisle in the whole bookstore. But pride keeps us out of that aisle, metaphorically and physically. Because why is that? We don't want to be seen in a state of not knowing. We don't want to be seen looking stupid or foolish or humiliated. We want to have it all together. We want to have the 1,000,000 followers, the perfect house. We want to have it all set. Oh my God, God forbid you start an Instagram and you have 2 followers. God forbid someone asks you a question, you don't know the answer. God forbid you start a business and you fail and you're not totally successful and it's a booming, hit. That's life. And so for me, I realized this is hilarious. Like, my results don't lie. I can't lie to myself anymore. If we're honest with ourselves, stop sugarcoating it. And I think that's what it was for me. It was brutal honesty. And I think that came along with just my personal journey. We all go through that journey of like the hero's journey. It's like you come to a point in your life where you realize, I'm not happy, things aren't working, and I want to change it. And what I'm doing isn't working anymore. And so I have to get honest with myself. So I surrounded myself with coaches. I would say that's the biggest difference. I invested in myself because it's accountability. Everybody, knowledge is free these days, but to apply it, to be accountable, to have a coach, that is someone else's energy, their time, they're pouring into you, their money gladly, but it's worth something. And I gladly pay for that. So it wasn't until I invested that it really shifted, because when you pay attention, right? It's like you put yourself on the hook. One of my coaches always said that. You have to put yourself on the hook. You got to put some skin in the game. Otherwise, you can retreat, so to speak. You have that escape route. So that goes in with decision. I decided with my money, and there was no going back, because once you make that decision, there is no going back, I guess.
I love your sharing that, because as you're saying about money, we might use money for other things. Parents might use it and invest it in their kids, like, oh, I'll get my kids all the classes that they need, or my husband can buy the new car or whatever it is. But especially as women, we tend to not want to invest in ourselves. Can
Mhm.
you talk a little bit about that and what that shift was for you? Like, were you using your money for other things
Mhm.
and not investing as an investment in yourself versus just spending money?
I was spending money. I was not investing money. I was spending money on the quick, what would make me feel better in that moment, like going out, drinking, numbing, all this kind of stuff. And it was all about self image, worthiness. For a long time, I would buy, and this is just, I speak for my journey. Like when it comes to makeup, I love doing my makeup. I love feeling beautiful. I love it. It's just an art form for me. It's my meditation. It's just, I love that. I like nice hair products. I just love nice perfume. I love that stuff. But I was finding myself like buying the cheapest stuff, like drugstore stuff, like nothing wrong with it. But I realized, like, why aren't I investing in higher quality things that might have better ingredients or better for my skin or for my hair? Why am I just spending money on cheap products that maybe aren't the best for my face or whatever? Why aren't I investing in something that has nutrients or something? And this is just that example of one area of my life. I was like, why don't I do that? Because I didn't think I was worthy, because it wasn't the image that I had in my mind. Other women do that. People with more money do that. When it came to clothing, where I purchased my clothes, it's like I would go to a store that had cheaper made clothing or whatever. I would buy 10 tops when I could go to a higher end store and buy two good quality tops that would last me years, when these other tops would fall apart in 6 months. So I'm not really saving any money by buying these cheap things, because you get what you pay for. And so to answer your question of like, especially women, I speak for myself and my own journey, it was about worthiness. It was about what I thought I deserved. I had a big sense of guilt, being selfish, just a lot of guilt around being good to myself and allowing myself to have nice things, because there's just that rhetoric of, poverty is virtuous, and how dare you spend money when people are hungry? It's like, I don't want to be too fancy because I don't want to offend anybody. And it was just a whole paradigm shift of worthiness, forgiveness, shifting paradigms around self-esteem and self-image.
Let's detangle this a little bit more, because I want to talk about what is a paradigm and how do you shift that self image, or how did you do it that could inspire our listeners with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. And so a paradigm is a collection of thoughts, beliefs, and habits around any area of our life. So think about paradigms as they're like operating systems, just like on our cell phone, right? We have phone. This is my iPhone, and I have apps I have little widgets and apps. And think about yourself as a phone. And we have programming and we have apps installed. And within that app is a whole world. And according to, that might be a little complicated, but paradigms are just a collection of thoughts, beliefs, and habits that run our entire life. So think about, there's paradigms in everything. So like, what's my paradigm around money? I'll just use that because it's common. And it's on a spectrum. And so I can have a really healthy paradigm or I can have a really unhealthy paradigm around money. And so what determines where I'm at on that spectrum of money, meaning money's hard to get, money is evil, as opposed to money's easy to get and money is freedom and, prosperity and abundance. So a paradigm is just a collection of thoughts, beliefs, habits that we are emotionally involved with, that run in our subconscious mind, runs 95% of our whole life. And to change a paradigm there's only two ways to change a paradigm. It's through that constant spaced repetition, just like I said, to really get the Think and Grow Rich in my system, repetition of an idea. And so to change a paradigm, we have to first understand what are the results in our life around that area. So think about health. I always kind of categorize it in 4 areas. There's money, finances. There's health, mental, physical, emotional. Career, purpose, calling, what we do with our life. And then relationships, family, love, partners. And so think about your paradigms in those 4 categories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you in those areas? That'll show you the health of your paradigm. So just find an area, say it's health. My paradigm around health isn't good. Well, look at your family. What have you been surrounding yourself with? How do we change that? Constant space repetition of a new idea, new people, new habits, new thoughts, new information. Or an emotional impact. Maybe the birth of your first child, getting married. It could be a good thing. Or it's mostly a bad thing. The death of somebody, the breakup of somebody. It's like in a second, your paradigm is shifted. Your whole world is turned upside down. What you once believed no longer exists. It's like the rug was pulled from you. It was a paradigm shift, right? Bob always used the example of a 9/11 for the United States. That was a huge paradigm shift. That shifted all of our beliefs about everything, what it means to travel, to fly, to be in this world, our relationships with other countries. So that was a strong emotional impact that shifted our paradigm and our way of being. It shifted our results that we still see today. So paradigms are just those installed programming operating systems that run unconsciously. And it's like a cybernetic system. It's always trying to continuously get that output of the set temp. So he uses the example of like, a heater in your house or a temperature gauge. If it's the set temp is to 70 degrees, if anything shifts, that temp is going to try to get back to 70 degrees. So say somebody, opens the door and there's a cold draft or a hot, window open and there's a hot day. It's going to kick back in and try to get back to that set temp. So our paradigms set our temperature. So if I think for my health, like I'm always set at, 130 pounds, that's my paradigm. I've always been 130 pounds. I've never been able to get down to 125. I never really go over 150, but that's my set temp. If I try to go on a diet, my paradigm is set to 130. If I want to get down to 125, if I do not address the paradigm around my weight or my image, I will never, maybe temporarily I'll get down to like 125, but it'll go right back to 130, the set temp. If I don't go down and change it at its source in the subconscious mind, nothing will ever change permanently. That's why we see yo-yo diets and people that get money and go down on money or get a happy relationship and then don't get one.
That's such a great example. How would someone that's wanting to change the set temp to 125 do that? Like, how do they start shifting that paradigm? And how did you do it too? Like, let's use that example because it's a very easy example. I think a lot of people can relate to it. And then I want to hear the story of how you shifted that paradigm and that set temp for yourself.
You know what? That was just an example. This is a perfect example that I use around time management. I had such a bad time around time. My paradigm around time was not good. And so it's about auto-suggestion. That's constant space repetition. That's another principle in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Auto-suggestion is a suggestion from yourself to yourself. What are we suggesting to ourselves? 24/7 auto-suggestion is working. And so when it comes to paradigms around time for me, I was always late. I was always late everywhere I went. Everybody knew I would be late. I hated it because people would make fun of me. Bosses, clearly, I could have gotten fired, right? I was always late. There was always, I just couldn't get my crap together. I couldn't leave on time. There was always something happening. And I was like, damn it. I'm always late. I kept repeating that. I'm always late. I'm always late. I'm always late. She's always late. I'm always late. Oh my God, how embarrassing. I would get this tightness in my stomach when I was driving on the freeway, seeing the time. I can't roll back time. The time is the time. Oh my God, I'm late again. I'm going to walk in late again with my head hanging low. And it became my identity. It was my operating system. No matter how hard I tried, I was always late. I would even set my clock back 10 minutes. I would leave the house earlier. I would get to my work earlier, but then since I was early, I would go walk down the street and get a coffee.
And then you'd be late again.
And then I'd be late. And it was that set temp. So I said, what is the result I don't want? So I looked at the paradigm around time. I don't want to be late. This is a result in my life. So this is the process. How do you change it? Find something in your life that you don't like the results. Well, how does it make you feel? For me, it made me feel anxious, disappointed, angry, frustrated. Okay, got it. Let yourself feel it. Really go there. If I could put words to this, how does it make me feel? I feel stupid. I feel like, what is wrong with me? There's something wrong with me. So really explore this paradigm that I'm experiencing. If I could put to words what is happening, it was easy for me. I'm always late. That's not a reality I want to experience. What's the polar opposite? I'm on time. Very easy. But then you have fun with it and you try to get emotionally involved with it. So I wrote, I'm always late and I hate it and I feel stupid. I'm early, calm, and prepared everywhere I go. Wow, that felt so good for me. I'm not just on time. I'm early. Wow, that's really opposite from being late. I'm early, calm, and prepared everywhere I go. Wow. And I wrote it on a 3x5 card. I burned the other one. And I had this affirmation, this mantra, this auto suggestion, this new operating system, this new paradigm I wanted to install. So I would do mirror work. So in the morning, after, as I was getting ready or look in the mirror, I would look in the left eye and the right eye. I know it could be weird if you've never done mirror work or if you have roommates or family, they're like, what are you doing? I would even whisper it, get really close, look in your eye. And I would say, I am early, calm, and prepared everywhere I go. I am early, calm, and prepared. I would just repeat it and feel it. It worked. It took maybe like 2 weeks, but I started being early, calm, and prepared everywhere I go. It was amazing. And you know what's so funny? That lasted for like 6 years. And it wasn't until like last year I started slipping on it again. I was like, oh no. I started being late and I was like, oh, I recognize this old weed seed coming up to, so I had to start repeating it again. So it's constant work because gravity is going to always try to take you down. It's like muscles in the gym. We have to continue to lift weights. At first, it might be harder, but then it's just maintenance from here on out. So always fill your mind with the polar opposite of the thought that you've identified. That is that negative paradigm that's getting the negative results. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, it absolutely I love it. It's such a great example, and especially because you're not the only one that has struggled with time. Maybe someone's listening and they're like, oh my God, yes, that's, like what's happened to me. I love that example. And what would you say for someone that's going through the wanting to lose weight? Like it's the same thing. And I know you're a marathon runner and you're like, you just gave the example with the gym. And many people can identify with the time. I'm actually the opposite. And it's always like, I have to be there beforehand because we got taught at school that if you were on time, you were already late. You always had to be beforehand for interviews and all these other things. But that's had a negative effect for certain things. For other things, I'm always there for my classes, for my teachings, for all these other things. But it's had a negative effect within my family, for example, because I bring this like rush energy, and it's hard to do that with a 10-year-old now, that when my daughter's younger and my husband's more calm, like in the mornings, I'm like, oh my God, we have to get to school by this time, by 8:30, even though we have a full half-hour window, but it's because I want my daughter to be at her recess and for me to start my day. And I would bring this energy of rushiness. And like my husband would say, he's like, it's just a fictitious rush. Like, why are we rushing?
Yeah.
And I started shifting that. I'm like, no, I'm not going to be rushing anymore. I'm going to tell my daughter that I'll be waiting for her in the car. If she takes longer, her recess will be shorter. So it takes an effort to shift that. But I'm so curious as to, like, with exercise or with our weight, because we're so obsessed with that. And I'm sure it's tied in, Karla, like I'd like to hear, with self-image, like what this 125 pounds versus the 130 that your thermostat was set at.
Yeah.
And what kind of phrases could we use again to get the results that we want, instead of yo-yo dieting or, losing the weight and then not, like, how could you help someone that's in that space to shift their self-image and to shift that paradigm?
Right. And this is so important. Even for me, I'm always learning. And just recently, when it comes to autosuggestion, people say affirmations don't work, autosuggestion doesn't work, prayer doesn't work. Like, it might work sometimes, but it doesn't work others. And so people just throw it out the window, like, I'm just discouraged. I have affirmations all over and it just doesn't work. This is why we have to understand how our mind works. Okay. And so just reading words and repeating words and having beautiful affirmations around is not going to work, because the subconscious mind is where I'm trying to see if I have my little drawing, but as we learn here, if anybody hasn't ever seen this, just really quick, this is the mind. Okay. This is an image for the mind. It's not really how it is, but this is what we use because there is no image for the mind. So,
and for those of you that are listening that aren't watching this on YouTube, just so you understand, it's a stick figure that she has.
And I did this on Clubhouse. So I'm glad you said that, because Clubhouse is not visual. So if you are not seeing this, I want you to imagine a circle, just a perfect circle with one horizontal line across. There's a top half of the circle and a bottom half of the circle. The top half of the circle is your conscious thinking mind. The bottom half is your subconscious or emotional mind. The bottom half, your subconscious mind, runs 95% of your life. That's what we're dealing with. That's where your paradigms and your self-image live, in the subconscious mind, in that emotional heart center of your being. This bottom part, that bottom part, is where these paradigms live. So I just want you to imagine down at that bottom subconscious part, it says 130 pounds. That's the set temp, or insert whatever weight you're at. So that is, you are emotionally involved with it. You have experience with it. You see yourself as an image of a heart. You see the clothes you wear. You see the size on your pants. You're emotionally involved with that. That's a result you continue to get. So then what do? On the top conscious part, we put 125 pounds, 125 pounds. We have affirmations, 125 pounds. But down here, it's still 130. Guess what? If we want to transmute, and start getting into that soil, that heart, the subconscious mind, and really get into that 130 pounds and change it, we have to speak to the subconscious mind in the language that it doesn't understand words. It understands images and emotion. So what do you do to change it? Throw the words out the window to start. That's not where you start. Get an image of 125 pounds. Get a feeling of 125 pounds. If you have to get a Sharpie marker and write the new size in your pants, cut the tags off that have that number, that keep confirming and, planting that seed and affirming that you have a certain size. These are the things you do. Trust me, your 5 physical senses, if you keep putting on your pants and you see a size 8 and you want a size 6, cut them off. Stop reinforcing this. These are the things you do. Images and emotions. That's why vision boards are so important. Go window shopping. Go pick up a rack of size 6 things and just walk around the store with it. See it. Go just look through the size 6 rack. Go look in the medium or the small, whatever you're trying to get. Images and emotion is the language of the subconscious mind. That's how you are going to change that. Once you're emotionally involved and you believe It's possible. That's one thing. If there's anything coming up and rejecting it, look into that. Who's told you that you could never do it? Have you told yourself you could never do it? Do you feel unworthy? What would happen if you did reach that? Would you be more vulnerable? Would you have to like show up more? Would you have more attention on you, right? Because weight is the number one thing that protects us from being vulnerable, from being authentic. We can hide behind weight. And I didn't mention, but I'm a psychotherapist as well. I'm a therapist. I'm a therapist full time, and I work with these issues all the time. And I myself has been there. We unconsciously can put on weight to protect ourselves and keep ourselves safe and not have attention. So that, I hope, this is a big topic, but if you want to change the weight, the temp, start seeing yourself the way you want to see. Start surrounding yourself with images. How do people at that weight eat? How do people at that weight work out? What would you have to do? Who would you have to become? And see yourself doing that. And then you can layer on the affirmations, but it will be for nothing if you don't do that core work first.
And take action, I guess, with that too, right, Karla? Like see yourself as the person that's a size 6, eating a certain way, as a person that's a size 6, exercising a certain way, and then just take action, like what?
Well, the more you get emotionally involved, that's what triggers the action. Because if we take no action, if we're not emotionally involved. So that's why the subconscious mind is emotions. Unless we're emotionally involved with it, we will never take action.
Yeah, that is amazing. I love that you brought in the psychotherapy aspect of it too, of starting to see how we can shift our self-image. Let's talk a little bit about self-image. Can we talk a little bit? I know we could do like another 3 hours of podcast, with these teachings, but we all have a certain self-image, and how do we shift that? Like, what does that look like?
Oh, wow. Well, anything I can say will not help anybody shift it. You have to do the work on your own. There's no quick pill. There's no quick fix. And I think anybody listening to this is, if you're listening to her podcast, you're into personal development and you're here to do the work, which is beautiful. So the number one book, Maxwell Maltz, Psychocybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. He was a surgeon, and he studied the psyche and the mind. He realized and he discovered that we have 2 self-images, one in our head and one in the world. And if those aren't congruent, because how many of us think that we see ourselves in our potential and we walk around like that, but other people are seeing the reality of the results of our subconscious mind. And it's like, sometimes we see photos, we see pictures, we see video, we're like, oh, that's me, right? It's not congruent with the self-image that's in our head. That's why when we see ourselves in photos, and that happens all the time, I want you to look at the most recent photo you were taken. And if you aren't happy or pleased, or it doesn't match the inner image, they're incongruent. It's okay, but it's okay for you, right? So the self-image is how we see ourselves. Do we see ourselves the way we would like? Do we walk the way we want? Do we dress the way we want? Do we talk the way we want? Do we go to places that we would like to? Like, what is our self-image? Because you can tell someone's self-image. There was a great, God, what was I listening to? We were talking about, I listen to audiobooks all the time. Reality Transurfing. Such a trip. That book is amazing. But it talks about how someone's self-image will be revealed. For example, if you like nice things and you want to up your self-image and you just want nicer things, you go into a store, you go to Rodeo Drive and you go into an expensive store. But if you feel inferior, if you feel anxious, if you feel timid, you don't feel like you belong there because your self-image is like, I belong at Walmart, or I belong at like Target or whatever. If you do not embody, I deserve to be here. I can buy those Tom Ford glasses. Let me try those on. Hi, can I pick this, this, and this? That exudes your self-image because you're a person who walks into Tom Ford on Rodeo Drive and you ask to put on these glasses. You might not buy them, but what would hold you back? Your self-image. These people are going to see me. I'm a fraud. I don't have the money. They know it. They can smell it all over me. And your self-image, your reality might be, I only got $30 in my checking account, right? The 3D, the outside results, the current results are incidental. Don't pay attention. If you want to change, do not pay attention to what already is because it's history. Don't put your effort and your attention and your power in what already is. Go inside, What do you want? I want to change. I want to increase my income. I want to increase my relationships and my health with my family and my physical health. See that and then act as if. Neville Goddard is the best at this. It's like act from the place of your wish fulfilled. And this is the funniest little image that I have. Most of us go through life, and for your readers that are listening, this is a little stick figure with a big carrot dangling, probably about 6 feet ahead of him. And that's mostly what we do. We have this self-image way out here in front of us, 6 feet. We always see it's always in the future, someday, one day. And we continue to walk, and where does that someday, one day? It just keeps getting further in the future. That carrot, the goal just keeps dangling further in the future. That's how we see our goals. No, we can't think of our goal in front of us because it will always be in front of us because there's no such thing as time. We must switch to it's already in our hands. So the next little slide I'm showing is the carrot is not 6 feet in front of us. It's in our hand. We already have it. Now, you don't have it in reality, in the 3D world, but in true reality, the inner world, you already have it. Feel it, because it does exist in a reality, potentiality. And when we dwell in that potentiality, when we allow ourselves to go there emotionally, by law, it will show up in the 3D world, because everything in this 3D world was once only a potentiality that was focused on, watered, nourished, gave attention to. So many things, but yeah, self-image is how we see ourselves. So if you want to change your self-image, the easiest, quickest way is do something different physically that you can feel, right? Do your makeup in a different way. Don't do your makeup. Start doing your makeup. Get something different. Throw your clothes out. Get new ones. Go to the Goodwill. Throw it all out. Wear a new perfume. You have to kind of use these senses to get you into a new vibration. I mean, that's what it is. It's if you want things to change, something has to change. I guess that's the simplest way. You got to just act as if.
This is great. I love that example. And how did you shift? Like, what's your story of how you had a shift? Because you shared before the story of like makeup, that you were getting the cheaper stuff and the cheaper things for your hair. I feel like we're all, I mean, I don't know, maybe for us that we're in the self-development world are constantly wanting to up our image and change our image. But can you share a story with us of like how you started doing it? Or, you know, you mentioned that you were drinking a lot of alcohol and you're now sober. I don't know for how long, you know, like how that's all part of self-image change. How did you do it, Karla?
Yes, goodness gracious. Doing the inner work, being honest with myself, but there's so many things that are popping in my head. So when it came around drinking, it's like, especially in the US, but I think anywhere in the world, it's so socially acceptable. I was just that fun social drinker, right? That there's no wedding that doesn't have alcohol. There's no vacation. There's no flight. You drink all the time. You drink when you're sad. You drink when you're happy. You drink to celebrate. You drink to grieve. It's like it's always there and it's so acceptable. It's at every meal. And, you know, it's just a part of the culture and it's what loosens people up. It's like, come on, just have a drink, have fun. It was a part of my image. It was a part of my paradigm. To me, truly, there was no world without alcohol. I couldn't fathom. And I thought people that didn't drink were like boring and like, oh my God, right? Until I realized the negative effect it was having on me. This habit's not working. It's not working for me. So I was in that limbo time of like, I can no longer live the way I'm living, but then I can't imagine the new life. So what did I do? I found people that were successful, that had the results I wanted. Key. So I started talking with them more, surrounding myself with them more, studying, learning information. And through the repetition, I started seeing a different way. You know what I did? This is what I did. I dreamt of sitting around a table with people at a dinner, seeing water glasses, iced teas, Cokes, no alcohol on the table. And I was like, wow, how would that be? Everyone talking, everyone sober, you know, wow. That image that I got emotionally involved with came to pass probably about a year ago. I was at a table with friends. There was waters and iced teas. And I looked, I was like, I did it. Oh my God, this is happening. No one's drinking. And we're having the best time. So even though you don't believe it to be true, just allow yourself to imagine it. What do you want? Just allow yourself to imagine what you want. So that was with sobriety. When it came to my physical appearance, I was in grad school, and I remember I was looking around. There was a young girl, and she had these gorgeous sunglasses on. They were just gorgeous. They spoke to me, and I was like, I love your sunglasses. She said, oh, thank you. She's like, they're Gucci. And I was like, okay. She was like 10 years younger than me. I'm like, I realized my paradigm. I thought, who do you think you are? What a waste of money. Why would you spend, how irresponsible? And I thought, F this crap. She is enjoying these. These are beautiful. They make me feel good. I'm going to get them. They were like $500. I have never in my life spent that much money, but I remember I was like, I deserve it. I love it. I still love them. I still have them. Every time I look at them, they make me feel so good. It was an investment. They're better than the $10 sunglasses that would have broke. I've had them for years. So that was one shift for me, being face to face with like, someone else is doing it. Why can't I do it? You know, I'm done with this cheap crap. Then it came to like, I just had this moment of like, I'm playing small. The image I have in my mind, I'm waiting for this one day. I'm going to do it now. I went and I bought like a whole new wardrobe, you know, and I felt so good. It felt so different right away. You all know if you buy a new shirt or a new outfit, you feel different right away. It shifts your image. And so just living in that. Then there was another important one of like how you fly. If you travel, you know, whether it be economy or business or first class. Whoa, that was the biggest shift because it's double or triple how much it costs. But I shifted my paradigm. That's just how much flights cost in my mind now. I just don't do that. And that's just my own personal preference. But it's a whole different image and experience. At first, it was extremely uncomfortable. I felt weird. I felt this is a waste of money. I'm stupid. But now it's just a natural part. It's non-negotiable. And so once you allow yourself to shift into a new self-image, it's difficult at first. It's painful. It's uncomfortable. You question yourself. You asked if you're stupid or not, right? But you never go back. You never go back. But you have to go through that time of change.
That is awesome. Thanks for sharing that vulnerability, you know, with the alcohol as well as with the part that it's uncomfortable. Because I think as listeners, as humans, we want to do the shift and be comfortable.
Oh, that's it. That's it right there. That's it right there. That's not how life works. You
It
got
doesn't.
to Yep, you got to do what's uncomfortable.
It is. That was so key for me of like the takeaways as you were saying that. It's like you just hit it. I do want to get a reel out of that, you know, of like it's going to be uncomfortable at first, but then you won't go back. That was brilliant. Thank you for that, Karla. Where can people find you as we're wrapping up here?
Yeah. My website, my name, karlaelizondo.com. That's probably, you know, where you can find me. And yeah.
And I have a couple more questions as we're wrapping up with this. The first one is, what's the most important principle from Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, that stands out for you? And I know that's going to be a hard one because I'm sure there's several. And like you said, you studied decision and autosuggestion for like 90 days or something, you know? So what are some of the most important ones that stand out to you?
Yeah, well, I would say they're all so important, but as we were talking right now, what's coming to me is decision. Decision.
Yes.
It's nothing happens. And I think Reverend Ike talks about nothing happens unless you make a decision, because unless we decide, we are always leaving the option open for other things. So I think of decision like when you look at the word decide, the last ending, CIDE in Latin means to cut off and to kill. So we know, you know, homicide to cut off and kill someone else, suicide to cut off and kill oneself, pesticide to cut off, you know, kill pests. Decide is a decision you make to cut off and kill any other option of anything else. So if you want something and you decide on that alone. You cut off any other option. So for me, the decision to stop drinking, I decided that drinking was not an option. I'm not going to drink. I'm a non-drinker. I'm a sober person. There was no other option. So I was never tempted. When people say, "Oh, would you like a drink?" No, I don't drink. I'm not a drinker. It was easy. But if I was wish-washy and I never made the decision, I'd be like, "Oh, maybe it's been a long time. I don't have to work tomorrow. Maybe I could." There's no maybe. There's no escape route. There's no plan B. You've decided. So decision especially when it comes to changing your self-image or any other change, changing a paradigm, losing weight, whatever it is, you decide. There is no other option, period. That's for me, I think, one of the most, for me in my life, the most powerful principles, because without decision, I wouldn't be where I am today.
That is amazing. Thank you for pointing that out. One last question that I like asking all of my guests is, what's one thing that our listeners can do to live a life with more courage?
Self-reflection, maybe. Looking inside, being honest with yourself. Emotional sobriety for me is huge. You talk about physical sobriety. What are we addicted to emotionally? Having the courage to be brutally honest and take that fearless moral inventory they talk about in the recovery space in the 12 steps. The most courageous thing that anybody could do is take that fearless moral inventory of themselves. Stop looking around, stop pointing fingers. Look at yourself. What are you thinking? What are you getting emotionally involved with? Stop fooling yourself. Don't betray yourself anymore. Have the courage to look with eyes wide open at your own behavior, your own thought patterns, your own weaknesses, your own habits, and the courage to look brutally honestly at your results, period. That's the most courageous thing anybody could do. It's like the cave you fear to enter. That takes the most courage.
Amazing, Karla. Thank you so much for being with us and for sharing all your knowledge, your wisdom, your stories. This has been fabulous. We'll have to do another one because I feel like we still have many topics from Napoleon Hill and that I'd love to touch on. This was great. Thank you
Oh
so
my God.
much.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful. Thank you.
I am so grateful that you joined me today. If you enjoyed it, there's one thing I'd like you to do. Click on the follow button so you don't miss a single episode. Leave me a rating and a review, and please share. As my way to thank you, email us a screen grab of your review at the email in the show notes, and we will send you a free Crafting Your Future guided visualization, which is so simple to do with outstanding results. It will empower you and give you the confidence to attract and create the life you've always desired. See you in our next episode.